All right, so buckle up because today's deep dive takes us straight into the heart of the Indian bankruptcy system.
Bankruptcy, huh? Sounds a little dry.
Oh, trust me, this is anything but. We're talking about a real-world case, one that a listener specifically requested because it's got twists, turns, and even a bit of a cliffhanger. And it all revolves around the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, the IBC for short. Familiar with that?
Rings a bell. India, right? Relatively new system, isn't it?
Spot on. 2016, to be exact. Yeah. And it's been shaking things up ever since.
Yeah.
But before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's set the scene. Imagine, if you will, the hallowed halls of the National Company Law Tribunal, the NCLT.
India's version of bankruptcy court.
Gotcha. Exactly. And standing before this court, we have our main player, MS Best News Company Limited, or Best News for our purposes. Now, this wasn't just any company. They were running regional news channels.
News channels. Talk about a tough business these days.
Tell me about it. Berlin News, Samakar Plus, and Samakar Plus were their babies, maybe even familiar names to some of you. But like a lot of media outlets, they were facing some serious financial headwinds.
Yeah, shrinking ad revenue, the shift to digital. It's a tough environment out there. I imagine that played a role in all of this.
You'd be right about that. The sources paint a pretty clear picture of those factors contributing to Best News' financial woes. But here's where things get interesting. They secured a loan. A big one.
How big are we talking?
Hold on to your hats, because we're talking a cool 75 crores from Sharma Gandhi Hire Purchase Limited. That's, well, let's just say it's a hefty chunk of change, even for a news company. Now, this loan came with a 5-year term, a 12% interest rate, and this is key, a moratorium on repaying the principal.
Moratorium, so they didn't have to start paying back right away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And get this, multiple times, Best News asked for extensions on that moratorium, and each time, Sharma Gandhi said, sure thing. Makes you wonder, right?
Yeah, were there already warning signs? Did they maybe suspect Best News was in trouble from the get-go?
It's a good question, and one that probably crossed Sharma Gandhi's mind because just a couple of years later, bam, they slapped that Best News loan with the dreaded non-performing asset label, an NPA.
Ouch. That's not a good sign, is it?
Not even a little bit. It's basically a lender saying, look, I don't think you're going to be able to pay me back. And usually it's a precursor to, shall we say, more assertive action.
And in this case, that action was?
Sharma Gandhi marched straight to the NCLT and filed a petition to initiate the Corporate Insolvency Resolution Process, the CIRP.
Okay, so things are getting serious. But what exactly does that entail? I mean, it sounds intense.
Intense is an understatement. But hold that thought, because Best News, they weren't ready to go down without a fight. They fired back, claiming that the 75 crores wasn't even a loan. They called it an investment.
An investment. That's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
Right. You've got this back and forth, a he said, she said battle playing out in the courtroom. And ultimately, the NCLT was left holding the gavel, needing to decide who to believe, what evidence to trust. It's getting juicy, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Someone passed the popcorn. But really, what did the NCLT decide?
Well, after poring over loan documents, scrutinizing communication between the parties,
Drum roll, please.
the NCLT sided with Sharma Gandhi. That agreement? Yeah, that was a loan. And with that ruling, Best News officially entered the CRP process.
Oh, boy. So no turning back now. This is where it gets really real for Best News.
So Best News is officially staring down the barrel of the CRP, and let's be real, things aren't looking great. It's like when a company hits this stage, what are the chances, really, of making it out the other side?
Well, it's not exactly a walk in the park, that's for sure. But the CRP is designed to, ideally, give companies a fighting chance, a path to, restructuring, getting back on solid ground.
Okay, so not all doom and gloom then. But how does that actually happen? Who makes it happen?
That's where the resolution applicant comes in. Think of them as a potential white knight.
A white knight, huh? Like riding in to save the day.
Exactly. They swoop in with a plan, a proposal to revive the company, settle the debts, the whole 9 yards.
And in the case of Best News, was there a white knight waiting in the wings? Did anyone step up to the plate?
They did, actually. A company called AKB Ventures Private Limited threw their hat into the ring, expressing interest in becoming the resolution applicant.
AKB Ventures, interesting. So what was their grand plan for getting Best News back on track? What did their resolution proposal look like?
Well, their proposal involved a restructuring of Best News' debts. That's pretty standard stuff, trying to make the numbers work again. But, and this is where it gets a little spicy, the amount AKB Ventures was offering to pay back to the creditors, Sharma Gandhi included, it wasn't the full amount.
Hold on. So they were asking Sharma Gandhi to take a haircut on that 75 crore loan. I bet that didn't go over too well.
It definitely added a layer of complexity. Remember, Sharma Gandhi had already taken a hit by declaring the loan an NPA. Now they're being asked to accept even less than what they were originally owed. Talk about adding insult to injury.
Ouch. Yeah. So what happened next? I mean, who gets to decide if this resolution plan is actually going to fly?
This is where the Committee of Creditors, the COCO, enters the scene. They're the ones with the power, the deciding vote. They represent all the creditors, not just Sharma Gandhi.
So it's like a boardroom showdown. Everyone's got their own interests, their own agendas.
Precisely. And they have to weigh the options, right? Do they try to squeeze every last rupee out of Best News, even if it means potentially driving them under completely?
Or do they cut their losses, accept a smaller payout, but give Best News a shot at survival?
Exactly. It's a high-stakes game of strategy, and the COSI holds all the cards.
So what did they decide? Did they approve AKB Ventures' plan? Or was this the end of the road for Best News?
Well, in a surprising turn of events, they actually voted to approve the plan. Best News got a second chance.
Wow, a real nail-biter. But wait, didn't you mention earlier something about tax issues? Did that throw a wrench into the works at all?
It did indeed. It seems the income tax department had been keeping a watchful eye on this whole saga.
Uh-oh, that can't be good, can it? What were their concerns?
Well, it appears Best News, shall we say, overlooked some outstanding tax liabilities. And the tax man, well, he doesn't take too kindly to being ignored, does he?
I imagine not. So what happened? Did they swoop in and shut the whole thing down?
It definitely created a whole new layer of complications. The NCLT was now faced with this approved resolution plan, this chance to save Best News, but with this looming tax issue hanging over everything. Talk about a dilemma.
A real pickle indeed. So what was the final verdict? Did Best News actually get their second chance, or did the taxman rain on their parade?
Well, the NCLT had a tough decision on their hands. It was a real cliffhanger, wasn't it? You've got this company on the ropes, a potential lifeline, and then bam, the taxman comes knocking.
It's like something out of a movie. So what happened? Did the NCLT end up siding with the tax department, or did they find a way to make this resolution plan work?
Well, they didn't take the easy way out, that's for sure. After a lot of back and forth, a lot of deliberation, they ultimately decided to approve the resolution plan. Best News was thrown a lifeline.
Wow, a victory for Best News. But there's always but with these things, they didn't get off scot-free on those tax issues, did they?
Not a chance. The NCLT made it very clear that those outstanding tax liabilities, yeah, those still had to be addressed separately.
So a win, but with a major asterisk.
Exactly. And that's kind of the point here, isn't it? This whole case, it highlights how complicated these situations can get. It's not always a clear-cut good guy, bad guy scenario.
It's real life, not a fairy tale.
Exactly. And the NCLT, they had to balance so many different factors, right? The interests of the creditors, the potential impact on Best News' employees, and of course, the need to uphold the law. It was a delicate balancing act.
It makes you wonder, if you were in the NCLT's shoes, what would you have done? Would you have prioritized getting that loan repaid, even if it meant potentially jeopardizing Best News' future?
It's a tough one, right? Where do you draw the line?
It's like choosing between a rock and a hard place. There's no easy answer. But that's what makes these deep dives so fascinating. We get to really dig into these complex situations, examine them from all angles, and hopefully walk away with a better understanding of how the world really works.
Absolutely. It's all about asking the tough questions, challenging our assumptions, and accepting that sometimes there are no easy answers.
And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of Indian bankruptcy law, courtesy of the very captivating case of EMS's Best News Company Limited. Hopefully you're walking away with more questions than answers.
Because that's what this is all about. Keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions, and who knows, maybe you'll be the one uncovering the next great bankruptcy saga.
And as always, thanks for joining us for another deep dive. Until next time.